Well, I'm so glad you're choosing to join us online today. We're going to worship together. I'm so glad to have some of my friends here. I wish we were all gathered together, but we're not right now. So sing as loud as you can in your living rooms, in your houses, wherever you are, and let's praise Jesus together. Come on now.
If you've been walking the same old road for miles and miles, if you've been hearing the same old voice tell the same old lies, if you've been trying to fill the same old holes inside, there's a better life, there's a better life. If you got pain, he's a pain taker. If you feel lost, he's a way maker. If you need freedom or saving, he's a prison shaking savior. If you got chains, he's a chain breaker. We've all searched for the light of day in the dead of
Hello and welcome to Believers Church. My name is Doug Vance, and I'm so glad you're joining us for worship today. Whether you're watching through the Believers app, Facebook Live, YouTube, or our online campus through believerschurch.org, our hope is that you'll experience the hope Jesus has for you today. If you're connecting with our online campus, you've likely already met your host and are connecting with others who are worshiping with you. A couple of great things about the online campus is you're able to ask questions, interact with others during the service, and request prayer, so be sure to take advantage of those opportunities. I want to invite all of you to let us know that you're participating in today's service by filling out a communication card. You'll find it on the Believers app, which you can download from the Apple and Google Play stores. If you're a first-time guest today, make sure you let us know by checking that block. We have a special gift we'd love to send you this week. The communication card is also a place where you can request prayer and take next steps based on today's message. Each week, our staff reads through these cards and prays for you. This month, we've teamed up with Causley and Vitamin Angels to provide life-saving vitamins and minerals to underserved children and moms around the world. This helps to prevent illness, blindness, and even death, and it helps in creating a healthier world. In 2018, Vitamin Angels reached over 70 million children and moms in 74 countries. Every 2 check-ins provides a vitamin to a child or mom in need. So what are you waiting for? Check in to Believers Church on Facebook or Instagram now. We are so grateful for the opportunities we have to come alongside our community, local partners, and believers' families during this season of uncertainty. Ministry isn't stopping. In fact, God's opening doors for us to be even more purposeful and making Jesus number one person at a time. When you give to believers, you are making a difference in our community and around the world. Today, I'm asking you to continue to give generously. You can do so through the Give tab on the app or website, or by texting BCVA to 77977. Thank you for your partnership in growing God's kingdom. In July, Believers Teaching Team is going to be doing a message series called You Asked For It. Each week of the series, we will be answering questions submitted by you. If you have a question that you'd like to be considered as a message topic, just email us at madeformondays@believerschurch.org and put "You asked for it" in the subject headline. Our partners at Crisis Pregnancy Center continue to come alongside women facing unexpected pregnancies, offer them the hope and healing found in our Savior. Support through CPC becomes even more crucial as worried mothers face economic strains resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic. You can help change the course of these women's lives by donating your change in our virtual baby bottle campaign. Find the link in the chat feed or in the message notes to give to the life-saving work of our friends at CPC.
Beyond my failures, there is a still voice to silence all my fears. Even the worst of my mistakes are miracles in the making, are miracles in the making. the storm, you are peace. In your love won't let me go. You have spoken, and I know that it is so. You have spoken, and I know that it is so.
When you speak, confusion fades. Just one word, and suddenly I'm not afraid. 'Cause when you speak, freedom reigns. There is hope in every single word you say. I don't wanna miss one word you speak, 'cause everything you say is life to me. I don't wanna miss one word you speak, so quiet my heart and listen.
When sorrows roll and troubles rage, you whisper peace. When I don't have the words to say, I won't lose hope. When storms won't break, you keep your word. Oh, your promises will keep me safe. I don't wanna miss one word you speak,
'Cause everything you say is life to me. Oh, I don't wanna miss one word you speak, so quiet my heart and listen.
your ways are higher. You know just what I'll trust you, Jesus. You see what I cannot see. Your ways are higher. You know just what I'll trust you, Jesus. You see what I cannot see. Your ways are higher. You know just what I'll trust you, Jesus. You see what I cannot see. Your ways are higher. You know just what I need. I'll trust you, Jesus. You see what I cannot see.
I don't wanna miss one word you speak, 'cause everything you say is life to me. I don't wanna miss one word you speak, so quiet my heart and listen. I don't wanna miss one word you speak, 'cause everything you say is life to me. I don't wanna miss one word you speak, so quiet my heart and listen. I don't wanna miss one word you speak, 'cause everything you say is life to me. And I don't wanna miss one word you speak, so quiet my heart, I'm listening.
Hey everybody, thanks for joining VR Online Campus. If we have not yet had the opportunity to meet, my name is Jamie. I am one of the pastors here, and I'm so glad that you're checking us out. We are 1 week closer to actually opening the doors of Believers and meeting here on campus again. The current thinking is that we will open up on June the 14th. And some of you, you're anxious to get back here, and some of you are anxious at the thought of coming back here. And so what I want to say to you is simply this. When it comes to you deciding when it's time for you to rejoin us, just use common sense. My friend, our missionary that we support in France, Kevin Stauffer, he often says this. He says that common sense is a superpower. So I don't want to assume that you have the superpower of common sense. So let me just kind of tell you what I mean by that. If come June 14th, you're not feeling very good for whatever the reason, or if you have some kind of condition that has compromised your immune system, then common sense would say you just stay at home and continue to engage VR Online Campus. Here's what we have learned over the last few months. I mean, we've been doing online for a long time, but we have learned that this does work, and while it's not the same as actually being together, it works, and you can connect with your church family, and you can connect with service hosts and online prayer, all the stuff. So if for whatever reason you're not going to be here, or you can't be here, common sense says, then just stay home and continue to engage online. Also, just want to say, there's no pressure for you to come back here. So we say this all the time around here. Come at your own pace. As you follow Jesus, we're not pressuring you to follow Jesus. We want you to investigate and learn the claims of Jesus. It's okay to go at your own pace and figure out who Jesus is and if you're going to follow him. But the same is true in your relationship with the church. If just come at your own pace. No one's forcing you to be here. No one's forcing you to do anything. So if you're uncomfortable with meeting when we open the doors on June 14th, then by all means, don't come here. Just continue to engage online. There's no pressure whatsoever. I do want to let you know, and we'll communicate more of this as we get closer, but we are doing some things that will mitigate some of the fears that some of you have about meeting together. So one of the things that we're going to be doing is we're going to put fewer seats on the floor, and we're going to space them a little bit further apart. We're going to open up all of the stadium seating so you can sit anywhere you want so that you can be appropriately distant from the people around you. We're going to have reduced number of people allowed in the services, but we're going to increase the number of services that we are offering. We're also going to have an increased number of hand sanitizing stations around the Commons area and make those available to you. And then between services, we're going to be wiping down all of the surfaces in the common areas, restrooms, armrest, all those kinds of things. So we're going to increase the amount of time and energy that we're putting into cleaning in between services. So these are things that we're doing. We're also not going to be passing offering buckets. That's probably a thing of the past now. And so for communication cards and offerings, we will have a collection on the way out so that not everyone has to touch a bucket, that kind of thing. So we're taking some steps. We'll communicate more of that. There are more things, a lot more things, but we'll communicate those as we get a little bit closer. Today, though, I want to continue our series, Viral, Spreading Hope and Help When Life is Uncertain. And the idea of this series is pretty simple. We want to make hope and help as contagious as a virus. And the reason that we're gathered today, the reason that anyone in our community is interested in what's happening is because the story of Jesus and his resurrection more than 2,000 years ago, that story went viral and it spread far and wide and fast. And because it did, we are here learning more about what it means to follow Jesus. And our thought is this, that hope, the hope of Jesus, can still spread widely. It can still spread quickly. And the stories that God is writing because Jesus rose again have the potential to transform people's lives because it demonstrates the power of Jesus. And so that's what we've been doing in this series is people have been sharing their hope that they have found or received in Jesus, and they've shared how it has changed their life, and hopefully it has encouraged you and helped you as you're going through your life. Today, I want to talk about addiction, how to overcome addiction. Now, this is a topic that has impacted just about every single one of you who are watching or listening online right now. And yet, even though that's true, it doesn't get talked about all that often. There is a shame that is associated with addiction that causes it to go underground. And that shame, there's ideas that maybe the person who's addicted is unstable in some kind of way. Maybe they're weak, and so they've fallen prey to addiction or whatever. And because there's some of this negative stigma associated with it, people have a tendency not to talk about it or acknowledge it. And in a lot of ways, that causes the addiction to be even more powerful. So as we get started, I want to just point out the obvious. I'm not going to say everything that can be said or should be said on the topic of addiction, but what I do hope will happen is maybe I will open this topic up in your mind. Maybe it will open this topic of conversation with your family, among your friends. And if you are struggling with addiction, or if you know someone who is, that what we talk about today can equip you, at least begin to equip you, to help them, help yourself in overcoming addiction. When you think of addiction, your mind probably goes to what's kind of captured the news the most over the last handful of years, and that is the opioid crisis. It's been in the news. It's been the things of congressional hearings and so on. In the last 10 years, more than 500,000 people have lost their lives to opioid addiction. So, I mean, it's devastating, and chances are really, really good that you know someone's family who's been ravaged by this addiction. I know I do. I know several people who've been impacted by the opioid addiction. Or maybe when you think of addiction, you think of alcoholism. And statistics are a little hard to come by on this, but what I've read is that it's possible that as many as 1 out of every 10 Americans are battling a dependency on alcohol. So chances are really good that if you look at your family tree, you're not going to have to look very far before you find a branch that has been impacted by addiction. I know families that have lost kids to addiction. I know spouses that have lost their spouse, siblings who've lost siblings. I mean, no one goes through unimpacted by this. It's such a pervasive problem. And it's very easy when you talk about addiction to start thinking along the terms of, yeah, it's a really big problem out there, and not personalize it and not crack the door to your own life and what's going on in your circle. And so today, what I want to encourage you to do is just kind of lean into this topic and open your mind to the possibility and open your eyes to the possibility that there are people right around you, or maybe even you yourself, who are struggling with addiction. Many have classified addiction as a disease, and I'm no doctor, I don't know. Maybe it has some properties that are similar to disease. If it is a disease, it's certainly different than breast cancer or MS or rheumatoid arthritis. It's also not like a virus. It's not something that you can catch. Other studies seem to indicate that maybe it's genetic, that addiction is genetic. And even within some of those studies, there's a lot of debate because is it genetic or is it a learned behavior? So families, kids of alcoholics tend to either become alcoholics or marry alcoholics. There's much higher probability of that. Is that because it was genetic, or is it because there were patterns in the home that became familiar and comfortable and they just repeated them? Or maybe it's a little bit of both. I don't really know. Increasingly, there is a consensus, though, that addictive behavior within the studies of this, that there's a link between addiction and pain, that somehow addicts have, there's some kind of pain that they're experiencing that feeds the addiction. Whether the pain is a physical one, which often starts addictions to like prescription medications, or whether it's mental or emotional or psychological. There's something below the surface that the addict is trying to cover with their substance abuse. The opioid, the bottle, the powder, whatever it is that they're turning to, they're turning to it because there's this underlying pain and they don't know how to handle it. So they begin to mask it with whatever this addiction happens to be. And the masking of the pain works. And so they turn to it again when they feel that pain, and they turn to it again and again and again. And then before you know it, this thing that they're turning to mask pain, to cover up their pain, becomes the source of their pain. So they're turning to it to escape some reality, and then they become entrapped by this new reality. That's what happens. They become hooked. Other times, someone might not be physically hooked, dependent on a substance, but they're emotionally or mentally hooked. And I don't say that to diminish the power of that kind of an addiction, because it is still extraordinarily powerful. And so people are basically self-medicating. They're masking their pain with whatever the substance is, and then before you know it, they've become ensnared by the very thing that they were turning to for help. A very famous person who kind of illustrates this for us is Edgar Allan Poe, the famous author, poet. He was no stranger to pain. Both of his parents died when he was a kid, and then he was adopted into a new family, and his adoptive mother also died, and he was suffering through that. Then he got married as a young adult, and then his wife died very young. And when that happened, he just grew in despair. And in the last year of his life, he wrote about his own struggle with addiction. And here's what he said. He said, "I have absolutely no pleasure in the stimulants in which I sometimes so madly indulge. It has not been in the pursuit of pleasure that I have periled life and reputation and reason. It has been," this is why he was turning to these substances, "the desperate attempt to escape," and that's really powerful, to escape or to mask, to cover what? To escape from what? Torturing memories, from a sense of insupportable loneliness or a dread of some impending doom. So for Poe, the addiction was an escape from these terrible things that kind of haunted him and tortured him. And he makes it very clear that his pursuit of addiction or these substances was not in pursuit of pleasure. It wasn't that he was having a great time and he got tripped up and found himself addicted. That's rarely what takes place. Far more frequently, almost probably always, it is someone who is masking pain, and then the thing that they've turned to ends up ensnaring them. Now, this is where this gets very personal, and I hope that you will move beyond just thinking about people out there who are struggling, and you might maybe consider behaviors in your own life that mimic this idea of masking, escaping, because there's a whole host of behaviors that people have labeled as addictive. And I don't know whether they're 100% addictive or not, but people engage in these behaviors for the very reasons that some people turn to alcohol or opioids or whatever. It's that they are self-medicating, and then the behavior triggers a release when you engage in these behaviors, a release of chemicals inside of your body like adrenaline or endorphins. And the release of those chemicals when you engage in those behaviors can actually become addictive. So even though it's not an illegal substance, it may still be a form of addiction. And some of those behaviors that people are talking about, you're very familiar with. There's workaholism, people who work to escape their reality, or shopaholics, people who are purchasing. I've heard that like people are buying crazy amounts of stuff that they don't need during the lockdown for no other reason than it's an escape for them. There's binge eating and other eating disorders. There's sexaholics. And some would argue whether that's a thing or not, but battles with pornography or whatever. Then there's a whole range of other behaviors that people are talking about as addictive. Gaming, social media. I even read that cosmetic surgery can become addictive. And if you look at some of the people out in Hollywood land, that's a possibility, I guess. So you might not be an alcoholic, but maybe there are behaviors that you are engaged in right now because you are medicating, you are escaping, you are covering, and you really do, maybe you don't need a detox, but you need some help. You need to take some steps that can help you to overcome these addictive tendencies. So that's what I want to talk to you about. If you want to overcome addiction and you want to take some notes, and I hope that you'll do that, here's the first thing that you need to do. You need to identify the source of pain. Like if addiction is driven by pain and the need to mask it or cover it, then it becomes really important that you understand what is the source of that pain. If you're gonna kick the addictive behavior, you need to understand what is driving it. And if there's pain behind it, you need to be able to name what it is so that you can overcome it. So, people who are battling, pain that's emotional or psychological, or even if it's physical. There are people battling depression or anxiety that are looking for an escape. There are others who have a lot of stress and they're not sure what to do with their stress. Or maybe it was a childhood trauma that is a source of the pain and you're not sure what to do with that. It could be loneliness or boredom. But you need to ask yourself, what is the pain that I am trying to escape? What is it that is driving this behavior that is causing me to look for something to mask that pain? What is it? How do you do that? How do you identify the pain? Well, you have to become a little bit of an investigator on yourself, a student of yourself. So you need to examine very honestly, why are you engaged in certain activities? Is it anger? Is it sadness? Is it boredom? And what is causing you to feel sad? What is causing this anger? Trying to understand what is triggering or driving this behavior can be very key in avoiding it in the first place. Sometimes a good Christian counselor can help you to dig below the surface and understand your pain. If your pain was caused by something traumatic that happened to you, oftentimes the underlying emotion behind that pain is shame. Shame and addiction are close companions, and shame causes people to hide and cover up and manage their image, and that is why addicts have a tendency to be very good at manipulating and very good at lying, because they're trying to manage an image. They're trying to portray something of who they are that masks what's really going on. And they're trying to cover their shame. I read a really good book years ago by a Christian author, and he's also a Christian counselor. His name is Larry Crabb, and the title of the book is Shattered Dreams. I can't recommend the book highly enough. In it, he talks about how a lot of people who are going to counseling, they're trying to figure out how to avoid feeling pain, and that's why they go to a counselor, because they don't want to feel any pain. And all of us have a tendency to avoid pain. But as I've been saying, avoiding pain or trying to cover the pain is actually what drives most addictive behaviors. So Crabb says in this book that pain can actually be the pathway to joy and healing. So pain can actually be a gift from God, pointing out the brokenness that you have so that you can get the healing that you need. So you think about it. If you didn't experience pain, you could do real damage. Like pain can be a gift. Like if you tell a kid, you tell your child, don't touch the stove. Because if they touch the hot stove, they're going to burn themselves. And you don't want them to burn themselves. So you say, don't touch the stove. But a lot of kids will test that, right? And they will touch the stove. And it only takes one touch, and they will quickly learn the lesson, and they remove their hand from the stove because they experienced pain. If they did not experience pain and they touched the stove, they could destroy their hand. But the gift of pain teaches them this is not good, and they remove their hand from the stove. And it is in facing your pain, whatever it is that you are experiencing, that can help you to learn and to grow. So don't shy away from your pain. Don't try to medicate your pain. Don't try to cover up your pain. Instead, allow yourself to feel it and allow it to bring you to the end of yourself. As you may know, that is the beginning of freedom, admitting that you have a problem. In the first step of the 12 steps of a 12-step program, the first step is this: we admitted that we were powerless over alcohol or whatever the addiction happens to be, and that our lives had become unmanageable. So getting to a place of saying, I am weak, I am powerless, I cannot control the pain or the shame that is driving me, my life has become unmanageable. You don't get to that place until you experience pain. So pain can be the gift that brings you to the very first place of surrender where you can find freedom. You know, sin wreaks havoc in our lives. Brokenness, addictive behaviors, the pain that we're experiencing, all of those things ultimately find their root in sin. Sin destroys, it breaks, it causes pain. And because all of us are broken by sin, we all experience pain. And God sent his son Jesus to take sin, our brokenness, our pain upon himself. So this idea of pain is actually key to the message of the gospel. The prophet Isaiah, writing about the Messiah, about Jesus, hundreds of years before Jesus actually came, he said this. He said, Jesus was hated and rejected by people. He had much pain and suffering. Jesus did. People would not even look at him. He was hated. We didn't even notice him. But he took our suffering on him, and he felt our pain for us. We saw suffering, and we thought God was punishing him, but actually, he was wounded for the wrong that we did. He was crushed for the evil that we did. The punishment which made us well was given to him. And we are healed because of the wounds, the pain that Jesus went through. So pain is at the heart of what the gospel is. Jesus experienced our pain. He took our sin upon himself, our brokenness upon himself, so that we could be set free. You need to understand this, and I don't want to be labeled sacrilegious here, but Jesus came to do more than forgive you of your sin. He did come to forgive you of your sin, but he came to make you whole. He came to set you free. He came to make you well. And I know far too many people whose journey with Jesus stopped at the sinner's prayer. You know, they prayed for forgiveness of sins, and yet today they would say, I'm a follower of Jesus, and yet they're still entrapped by addiction. And I would say Jesus wants you to do more than pray for forgiveness of sins. He wants you to continue to follow him so closely that you follow him towards wholeness and freedom so he can set you free. Don't cover your pain, reveal it, bring it to light. One of our next steps today is simply to identify the pain in your life. Identify the pain that is driving the addiction or these unhealthy behaviors. Can you name it? Can you name it in your own life? Will you take a step today to maybe reflect upon that? Maybe have a conversation with someone about some of the things that you're struggling with. Maybe journal it, talk to God about it. This brings me to the next thing that you need to begin your journey to overcoming addiction, and that is this. I need to surround myself with the right people. Overcoming addiction is not a solo activity. It is a team sport. You need the right people around you if you're going to be set free. You can't do it by yourself. Now, the right people, how do you find them? I'm a big fan of 12-step programs, so I think you probably can find them in AA or NA or whatever other A, depending on the destructive cycle that you're in. The right people could be a trusted counselor. It could be a trusted group of friends. But here's the bottom line in who the right people are. The right people are those that you can confide in and trust, and those who support the direction that you are heading. That's really important. They support the direction that you are heading. If you are wanting to overcome addiction, they support you in that effort to overcome that addiction. And I hear you. I know your best friends are at the bar, but if you're trying to get sober, you need new friends. Like if you're stuck in the mud, the person next to you who's also stuck in the mud is not going to be the person to get you out of the mud, right? That just kind of makes sense. So you need the right people. 12-step programs have played an important part of my family's life. We've been helped tremendously by them, and depending on the struggle that you have, that may be the place to go to find the people that you need to put yourself with or surround yourself with. But listen, as a person of faith, as a person who believes in the power of Christ and the potential of the church, I think what happens in 12-step program meetings ought to be the normative experience right here in the community of faith that we call the church. We shouldn't be scandalized when somebody comes clean and says, here is the thing that has me ensnared, I need help. Like, we shouldn't be repelled by that, repulsed by that, surprised by that. We should come around that person with love and support and encouragement to help them to find the freedom that they are seeking. I was reading the Apostle Paul's words to the believers in a church in the city of Galatia. And as I was reading the words of Paul, it was as if I could have been reading the words of Bill, the founder of AA. But I wasn't reading the words of Bill. I was reading the words of the Apostle Paul from more than 2,000 years ago as he was talking about how to implement the teachings of Jesus in their community of faith, in their church. And I think it speaks to what we need to be doing as well. Here's what Paul said. He said, "Dear brothers and sisters, if another believer is overcome by some sin, if another believer is overcome by some destructive behavior, if another believer is overcome by a pattern of addiction, you who are godly should gently and humbly help that person back on to the right path. And be careful, he says, don't fall into the same temptation yourself. Share each other's burdens, and in this way, obey the law of Christ. And the law of Christ is simply to love others the way Jesus loved us. If you think you're too important to help someone, you're only fooling yourself because, well, you're not that important. You're not so important that you can't help someone else with their struggle. The reality is the day's coming that you're going to need help with your struggle. And so Paul says we need to come alongside of each other and help one another. James, the half-brother of Jesus, he said this. He said, confess your sins to each other. A lot of people think, to find freedom, all you need to do is sit in your prayer closet and talk to God. But James says, you need someone else. Confess your sins to each other and pray for each other so that you may be healed. There is healing that comes in community. There's healing that comes in having the right people around you. This speaks a little bit back to the 12 steps, what Bill was getting at in step 5. Here's what step 5 is. I need to admit to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of my wrongs. And so there's power that comes in community. There's power that comes in confiding in other people and asking other people to help you on your journey out of addiction. Our B groups, that's our version of small groups, they're starting signups for the summer. We'll be starting on June 14th. And they're not necessarily recovery groups, but that does not diminish the power that they have to help set someone free. So I want to introduce you to Vicky, someone that has found tremendous strength in her journey to sobriety by surrounding herself with the right people. And some of those right people were people that she found right here at Believers.
Hi, my name is Vicky. Today I want to share about my struggle with addiction. No one wakes up thinking I'm going to become an addict today. I was your typical middle child flying under the radar. I excelled in school, sports, and extracurricular activities. I graduated from college and was blessed with a good career, and I even fell in love and got married. I thought my accomplishments defined who I was and gave me value as a human being. But I was wrong. At 35 years old, I found myself alone, without the children I'd hoped for, depressed and lost. When my marriage failed, I had severe anxiety that was treated with a medication that opened the doorway to my addiction. In the 7 years that followed, it felt like one hit after another. I lost my best friend to cancer, then my grandmother and uncle. Not long after, I was diagnosed with a lifelong autoimmune disease. All the accomplishments I thought defined me were gone. Some days I could barely get out of bed. I had developed poor coping skills from childhood and had built up a wall around me, not allowing anyone in. I was holding onto my job by the skin of my teeth. I felt empty inside, and the pain from losing so many loved ones was too much to bear. I felt like a complete failure, a shell of myself. So I turned to drugs to numb the pain, both physically and emotionally. It wasn't until my sister stepped in that I realized I had a problem. One day she woke me up and said, "I'm taking you to a detox center. Enough is enough." I didn't even know my kidneys were shutting down and my gallbladder was rupturing because I had taken so many pills I was completely numb. I could have been a statistic, but God said, "No, this is not your time." But why? Why had he chosen to show me so much grace and mercy? Even though I had grown up going to church every Sunday and believed in God with all my heart, I hadn't talked to him in quite some time. But you better believe that first night I spent in the detox center, I started praying again. I told God that night, "I can't do this. It's too hard. I'm not strong enough. I'm not worthy." At 43 years old, after too many relapses to count, I went to a 28-day rehab program. I had tried to do everything my way. I thought I was in control of everything, but in reality, I wasn't. I soon realized that God had the power to help me as I surrendered to Him. And I do this every day. I give my problems, my worries, and my fears to God. This addiction brought me to my knees, and God has been there every time to pick me up. Just over a year ago, I joined a B group because I wanted to learn more about the Bible and I wanted to fellowship with other believers. I wanted to strengthen my faith and learn how to truly hear what God was saying to me. The first night of my B group, I felt so much love. It gave me hope. With each passing week, I could feel my faith becoming stronger, and I was praying to God and listening to what He was trying to tell me. I made a decision to finally walk in the doors of believers. Something had been holding me back. I had so much guilt and shame from past mistakes, but the love and acceptance I felt from the members of my B group gave me the courage to finally go to church. And I'm so glad I did. That Sunday, Pastor Jamie spoke about the very things that were holding me back, and he spoke about baptism. While he was giving the sermon, I could feel the love of Jesus washing over me, and I knew it was time for me to recommit my life to Christ. So I decided at that moment to get baptized the following week. After church, I saw one of my B group leaders, and I told her, and she was so excited for me and told me she had been praying for me the whole service. I was amazed because I could feel that unconditional love. When I got baptized the next Sunday, the members of my B group were cheering me on. When I came out of the water, I felt light and free from all that guilt and shame I had been carrying from my past addiction. I am now relying on my faith. I never thought I was good enough for God to speak to me. I didn't think I was worth His time or that I would even be able to hear what He was trying to tell me. But the love and acceptance I felt from the people at Believers gave me strength and courage. Now, when I pray, I can hear God speaking to me. I can feel the love of Jesus in my heart. Now I feel worthy of His love. I can sense His presence all around me. I'm excited about my renewed relationship with Jesus. He has strengthened my faith, given me hope, and shown me unconditional love.
I'm so thankful that Vicki was willing to share her story and kind of bring a topic that's kind of difficult to talk about and to bring it to light. Sin and addiction, they're a little bit like mold and mildew. They flourish in the dark. A couple years ago, I had to have the underside of my house treated because it's cold, it's damp, and it's dark underneath the house. And because of that, there was mold and mildew growing everywhere. And if there was a way to do it, I could take the house and flip it over and let the sun shine on it. And bringing it into the light destroys the power of the mold and the mildew. And the same is true with sin and addiction. The more you try to hide it and cover it up, the more powerful it becomes. And if we could all have the courage of a Vicki and to just bring it into the light with people that we trust, people who love the Lord, people who support the direction that you're trying to go in your life, boy, it could go a long way to helping you to overcome addiction. So identify the source of pain, surround yourself with the right people. And then number 3, organize my life around my purpose. Organize my life around my purpose. I'm not referring to your purpose as in like your job, trying to figure out what you're good at and then doing that. That's not really what I'm talking about. I'm really talking more about your purpose as in what has God created you to do. And for all of us, it's actually a pretty similar deal. You think about a manufacturer who makes a refrigerator. They make the refrigerator for a purpose, and the purpose is to keep food cold. That's why a refrigerator is made. There was a great book years ago written by Pastor Rick Warren called The Purpose-Driven Church, and in that book, he talks about the 5 purposes that God has given every single person who is alive. And if you have not read the book, and I can't believe you haven't, if you haven't, you probably ought to. You probably ought to read it. But you could discover your purpose just by reading the words of Jesus. And we'll read in John 13 where Jesus kind of gathers up his disciples, and this is right before he goes to the cross and dies for their sins, and he gives them this instruction. He says, now I'm giving you a new commandment, a new purpose. Love each other. Just as I have loved you, you should love each other. That is our purpose, to love others in the same way that Jesus has loved others. So there it is. That is your purpose, to love others in the same way that Jesus loved you. And he loved you enough that even though you didn't deserve it, even though you were broken, even though that you ignored him, he still loved you. And he's commissioned you to love others in the same exact way. And here's the thing. You cannot fully love others when you are stuck in addiction. Now, I didn't say you can't be a loving person. You can be. But you can't love the way Jesus loved if you are stuck in addiction, because part of addiction is it is hurting the people around you. And by definition, that is not loving in the same way that Jesus loved you. In the 12-step program, the 12-step talks about helping others find the first step. And that's a real purpose. The Apostle Paul, he was explaining to some church leaders, they were trying to discourage him from going somewhere because they felt like if he arrived at this particular location that he was going to be hurt in some kind of way. And Paul is trying to tell them it doesn't matter, because if he avoids this location, he would be avoiding his purpose. And he said, I don't want to avoid my purpose. I want to organize my life around my purpose. Here's what Paul said. He said, my life is worth nothing to me unless I use it for finishing the work assigned to me by the Lord Jesus, unless I live my life according to my purpose. What is the purpose? The work of telling others the good news about the wonderful grace of God. We all have that same purpose. If we're going to love others, we need to let people know about the love that God has for them. If you live for your purpose, and if you will organize your life around your purpose, a purpose of pointing others to Jesus, and you stay on task, you stay on mission, you stay on purpose, it can keep you from drifting into the rocks of addiction that can destroy your life, because you're not drifting all over the place. You are organizing your life around your purpose. I know far too many people who've gone adrift. Let me encourage you. If you are stuck in addiction, then let's look at these next steps. Identify the source of my pain. That's the first one. Then you need to get some of the right people around you. And it doesn't matter if that's in the 12-step community, if it's in a B group, if it's right here at church. The reality is it's probably going to be a little bit of all of that. It's not, you don't have to choose between the 12-step community and the church. They can work in concert with one another. Get the right people around you. Then organize your life around your purpose. What are you doing to love others in the same way that Jesus loved you? Get engaged in serving and loving other people. It'll help you stay straight. Then memorizing Acts 20:24, that's the verse that we just read where Paul talks about his life loses meaning if he's not living for the purpose that he has. And then the last one, trusting in Jesus for the very first time. Like I said, I think it's an important step to commit your life to following Jesus, but I don't think it's the final step. But I do think it's an important step. And if you have never opened up your life to say, I need forgiveness, I need cleansing, I need healing, if you've never done that yourself, then I would strongly encourage you to pray with me right now. So as you watch, as you listen, bow your heads with me, and we'll just close out this time in prayer. Father God, we love you. We're grateful that you love us. Thank you for sending your son, Jesus, to take our pain and our shame upon himself. I pray for those who are watching or listening who are struggling with addiction of any kind. And Father, I pray as they follow you that you would lead them to freedom. I also want to pray for the one who has never admitted that they are powerless over the sin that is controlling their life. And Father, I pray that you draw those people to yourself even now. And if that describes you and you've never surrendered yourself to Jesus and asked for the forgiveness of sins, then you can pray with me right now. Just say, Father, thank you that you love me. Thank you that you sent your son Jesus to die in my place and that he rose again on the third day. And right now in this moment, I commit myself to following you. I receive the forgiveness that is promised to those who follow you, and I will continue to follow you towards freedom, towards wholeness. And I thank you that you love me. Pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. If you did pray that prayer with me, be sure to let me know that. I would love to be able to send you a resource that we have put together that can help you in following Jesus in the days ahead. Thanks for tuning in.